The most absurd work of fiction or fantasy that I've ever experienced is by far my own TBR. But despite that fact, I thought it would be fun to take a few minutes today to talk about what I'm planning on reading this month. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think 7 books that I'm working through right now, which sounds crazy, but one of them is a back burner read for sure, and then 2 of them I'm reading at a much slower pace, and the rest are all very quick books. So that being said, I'm going to just jump right in with the first of these books, which is definitely my back burner read. I started this probably months ago, and I am very slowly making my way through it. That is Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. This is a book it's a nonfiction book about fungi and how they work and how they make the world work and how they impact our history, our present, and our future. And I'm very into this whole idea. I read the book, The Fungus. I'll put it up on the screen. I can't remember who that's by. Months ago, and while I hated every single character in that book and every decision that they made and thing that they said, the problem that they had I did find interesting. It's very much fungal zombies, which I love. I'm a huge fan of The Last of Us and really anything to do with fungal zombies, but I wanted to take a more realistic look at fungi and how they work and how they impact us. And I do believe that they go into cordyceps a little bit in this book, and I'm very excited to get to that point. But how excited? This excited. Like I said, it's been months. I just don't reach for a nonfiction book very often. When I do, it's this one, but not very often. I would love to finish a nonfiction book this year. I read, I think, 1 last year. And if I could at least hit that target or surpass it this year, that'd be cool. But all goals are arbitrary and made up, and it doesn't matter if I do or do not do that. But that's my goal right now. The next book that I want to talk about is not a planned back burner read, but I just know that I'm not reaching for this as much as I want to be. This is the Iliad. This is the Emily Wilson translation of Homer's story. It's interesting. This one I've made a little more headway into. I think I'm on book 11. I said I think, and then I checked. I am on book 11. I think this is one of those classics that is a classic because it's a classic, if that makes sense. This seems to me to be held in such high regard due to just the longevity of this story. The fact that this story is still around after I don't even know how many years. It just is kind of a piece of history. I think that is why it is still around, why the story is still being told, why it's still being translated again and again and again. For me, it doesn't seem like it's a classic because of how expertly crafted the story is. Translations aside, this is an old story being told in an old way, which is really cool, but it's maybe not for me, if that makes sense. And it's not about the fact that it's translated from language to language. It's more about that it's translated from format to format. This was a story that was told to people. People would walk into a town and open their scroll and read the story of the Iliad to a crowd. And they talk a lot in the introduction about why that impacts the way that this is written. For example, there's a lot of repetition throughout the story. They will tell you this person is the son of this person, and then they'll tell you that again and again and again. There's even entire passages where somebody will say to somebody else, go walk over there and tell them that I said this, this, and that. And then that person will walk over there and tell that person that they said this, this, and that. So you could read 2 pages of an explanation and then flip a few more, and then you're back at those same 2 pages. There were times when I listened to a chapter and I was like, wait, have I already listened to this before, or am I crazy? Did I lose my space when going between the physical and the audio? But no, it's just really redundant. And that makes sense given the context of that person walking into your town and reading you a story, right? Because they could leave and come back and I don't know how long and read you the next part of it. And then you are grateful for the reminder of exactly what that person said, right? But when I'm reading it and I've just read these 2 pages, now I'm just reading them again, obviously I could just skip through those parts, right? If I'm seeing that it's going to be redundant, I could just turn the page, but I don't want to miss anything. So in case they inject something new, I want to catch it, if that makes sense. But that was a lot of hating on it. It is really fun. It's really interesting. I love Greek mythology and I'm not having a bad time with it. But again, it's just not what I'm reaching for. Something that I am reaching for, but I'm intentionally reading this one slowly, is Johnathan Strange and Mr. Norell. This is a book that I'm reading along with Hardy's books. They're doing a buddy read. I'll have a link to their fable down below. This is a really interesting story. I don't know that I could tell you what it's about right now, other than we're kind of dropped into a world where there used to be magic and people are kind of looking for it again, if that makes sense. In chapter 1, I got big Dracula vibes, even though it's not anything really like that, other than it being, I think it is a gothic tale, and Dracula is definitely a gothic tale. But chapter 1 of this very much felt like the opening few chapters of Dracula, where you're kind of walking through a space and something is off, but you can't figure out what. It put me right back in that feeling of kind of uneasiness. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm 6 chapters in. I'm in a part of the book that Ross Hardy of Hardy's Books said is kind of where people tend to DNF. But so far, I have no urge to do that. It is a book by Susanna Clarke, who wrote Piranesi, which was my favorite book of last year by far. So I'm very excited to be back in her writing. And I'm also really excited to be reading at a slower pace with this buddy read, because I really want to make sure that I get the most that I can out of it, because I really do like Susanna Clarke's style. And I think that it deserves more of my attention and a slower pace, and for me to really read it and take a minute or day to digest it before just jumping into the next chapter. So really looking forward to this buddy read. But outside of those 3 reads that I'm going through very slowly, I needed something quicker. I needed something that I could just pick up at any time of the day and tear through. So I have a couple of books that I'm reading right now that kind of fill that slot for me. Wistful Ascending is the first of those. This is by J.C.M. Byrne. This is kind of superheroes in space is the quickest version of a description I could give of it. It's a series that Sam Harrison is often talking about. I know he's reading the most recent book right now. And J.C.M. Byrne just put out books 1, 2, and 3 for free on Kindle. So I snagged them up and I dove right in. I read the prequel novella months ago, and I had a great time with that. So I'm very excited to be back with Rohan and see what the rest of this series is all about. I can't tell you too much about it because I am 1.5 chapters in, but so far very fun. Happy to be here. And on audio, I'm reading Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu. This one is another one that I can't really tell you much about because, again, I'm really early on. I just started it yesterday. The chapters are really short, so I'm on chapter 7 of that one, I think. But really, I'm only a couple hours in, if that. But so far, we're following Jai, our main character, as he works for the people who have killed his father. And I have no real idea where this is going, but it's got dragons, it's got griffins, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. I've not actually read all that many books with dragons in them, so I'm excited to be able to add another one to the list. This is another book that I'm reading as part of a buddy read, this time through Andrew Watson's Discord. I know Mair of Lady Mair Reads has spoken very highly of this book, and there's several people in the Discord channel who have either finished it or are further along in it than I am, and everybody seems to be having a really good time with it. So I'm very excited to dive further into this one. And the only other read that I have going on right now is volume 12 of One Piece. I finished volume 11. It was pretty cool, but I'm still not hooked. So I'm going to finish 12. The plan is to then pick up 13, 14, 15, and then I'm going to decide from there. And that's only because that's as far as I have currently in this house. If I'm not yet sold, I don't know that I'll be picking up 16, but feel free to convince me if there's a point that I'm getting close to that you think that I should really stick around until. Yeah, let me know in the comments if I should stick it out even further, but I'll keep you updated as I go. And I know that I said this was going to be my TBR, and then I talked about all the books that I'm reading right now, but that's because I read pretty slow, and so I don't know that I'll have time to fit in any more books. But if I do have time to fit in more books, I will be picking up Full Moon by Jim Butcher. I almost said by Harry Dresden, but that's book 2 of the Dresden Files. Like I said in my last video, I recently read book 1 and I had a really good time with it. So I'm excited to get into book 2, although I have heard that it is a little weaker than the first and that it really picks up after this entry. But I am still, that's probably my next read. And now I have physical, so that would be after I finish Wistful Ascending. After I finish Dragon Rider, the next audiobook that I'm picking up is absolutely going to be book 3 of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Absolutely, unless I change my mind. And that's pretty much it. I highly doubt that I'll be able to finish all the books that I mentioned here today and then also start something new by the end of the month. So that's probably the definitive list. And it'll be very interesting to watch this video back at the start of October and see how I did, if I even finished these. But we'll see what happens. So thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you're reading right now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.